heading to a spot, marching out here through the snow to bring you some excellent information about how to increase flexibility for our Flexibility Month theme without wasting your time doing boring ass stretches. Welcome to a new theme. February is Flexibility Month, so for all you stiff bastards out there, I used to be one, we're going to share with you a concept for increasing flexibility in the hip region, really for the whole lower body, but it focuses a lot on the hip region, and we get lots and lots of questions about how to reduce tightness in the hips, especially for people who work desk jobs, go and work out, play a recreational sport, and competitive athletes as well. And this is where I can really relate because I played basketball at university level, and by the time I was in my fourth year of playing, I had such chronically tight hips that I would literally have to wrap one side of my hip and groin with support, like a tensor bandage, to play to minimize the pain. So I wasn't always flexible. Playing sports got my hips super tight, and I went through a lot of different methods of experimenting with different ways of opening up my hips and making them healthy again. And I found that stretching is one of the least effective ways of doing it, and actually stretching really tight hips irritates the joint capsule a lot, and a lot of people just end up making the problem even worse. So hopefully you'll find this tip useful. One of the drills or movements we like to use to open up the hips is like a transitioning squat. To get yourself into some variation of a squat, which looks kind of like a lunge. It kind of resembles like you're doing this kind of a stretch. Or if you're familiar with martial arts, it will resemble like a bow stance. But the idea is not to rest in this position at all, and it's certainly not to stretch, like as in trying to isolate a position and just rest and stretch in the position. The idea is to make the position very active and dynamic, and you're transitioning from side to side. And you want a feeling of elasticity. You want a feeling of like buoyancy, where all of the joints in the whole body are connected, collaborating in the movement. So if I do something like this, I'm not connected throughout my whole structure. Okay, there's something here that's disconnecting me. Now I feel a tight stretch, but I can't do anything from this position. Whereas here, I'm ready to move quickly in and out of the squat and transition from side to side. So if you start with a narrower position. The foot position is somewhat off center. It's not on a straight line. Your toes wouldn't be on a straight line going across. They'd be slightly staggered. It's like an active position, an athletic position. And your toes are somewhere going like this, okay? Somewhere diagonal, like a 45-ish degree angle, both of them. The back heel stays down. You're not coming up on the toe. The back heel stays down. So for a lot of you, that will reduce how wide you can open up the position because you'll be limited by ankle mobility and Achilles flexibility. So you start in narrow, that's fine. You work in a position where you feel buoyant and elastic. You come to the center, you shift your toes to the other side, 45 degrees again, and you try to find again that buoyancy and elasticity, okay? You don't do this, you don't break through the lower back and cause overextension that's gonna cause you to eat stress in the lower back. You keep the lower back nice and open. The upper body is like an elongation of the back leg. So it's going forward somewhere out here. You're ready for action. And as you come back to the center, you switch sides again. And each time you switch, you could shove back foot, slide the back foot back a little bit. Okay? So the position gets wider that way. One variation we like to use is, we don't have one right now, but if you get a soccer ball or a medicine ball or something and put it on the ground, you can roll the ball out on a 45-degree angle, kind of in the same direction that I said to point your toes. You roll it out and try to stretch in a good way. Stretch as far as you can to reach the ball as far as you can. So this way you're using the body as a unity to accomplish a specific action, a task. You're not focusing on stretching a muscle. You're focusing your intent on an action. So you're rolling the ball out, or you can set something just out of reach and reach for it. I'm paying special attention to my foot position. I'm paying attention to keeping my back heel down. And the weight distribution is about 60% on the back heel, 40% towards the toes or the front of the foot, somewhere around there. It's just to say that you want slightly more weight towards the back of the foot, and your feet are nice and properly rooted to the ground. And you can see that it just opens up the hips in a more kind of alive way. It's more useful for movement that you're going to use in athletics, in everyday life, in dance, instead of doing some kind of a dynamic stretch, or if you're really flexible, sitting in the splits. But we've seen lots of dancers or people who can sit in the splits but can't necessarily use that range very explosively. So it's not very useful. If you want to be in a state where you can move explosively and quickly, then you want to train your flexibility in a very dynamic way that will carry over more to whatever it is you're trying to accomplish. So how you can approach this in terms of putting it into practice is just to set a timer for 5 or 10 minutes and work on it in short blocks. So 10 reps per side. You're going to do 10 transitions per side, or 5, start wherever you want. Somewhere between 5 and 10 transitions per side. Then you're going to bring it in, relax, maybe do some hip rotations, some waist rotations, and when your muscles are relaxed, you go back into it, okay? You don't want to get to the point where you're stretching to fatigue, where the muscles and ligaments become so overstretched that they become lax and tired. You want to keep an elasticity, like I keep mentioning, okay? So you do maybe 5 reps each side, transitioning. You can sink down into it, hold the position for a bit, or you can go just back and forth dynamically. When you're working on flexibility in this way, you should think long term. This is not an overnight solution. This is not where you're going to spend, half an hour to an hour a day stretching to try to really quickly increase your flexibility. I won't promise that this is the fastest way to increase flexibility. There may be other ways to increase your flexibility faster, but this is the best way to increase usable flexibility. So it may take you longer, maybe not. Sometimes it might work quicker for people as well. But even if it takes you longer, you should have a long-term approach to it. Think in terms of years, not in terms of weeks or months, to restore mobility to the joints and flexibility that most people have lost from years, sometimes decades of accumulated improper movement or just not moving enough. So take your time, don't rush, and make lasting improvements that are going to be sustainable, not rushing to just increase flexibility in a way that's going to end up being potentially harmful and injurious to you, especially if you're an athlete. There's a link below. Subscribe to our email list if you want to be receiving more content like this. Every month we're going to have a new theme, and we're going to bring you content that we feel is useful, that you can access easily, and that is free. Enjoy.